Hey there. So, today we're going to talk about something that a lot of English learners struggle with: improving their spoken English. I'm really excited to dig into this topic with you.
Absolutely. It's such a crucial part of mastering the language. Where should we start?
Well, I think one of the most fundamental things is building your vocabulary. Without a solid vocabulary base, it's going to be really hard to express yourself fluently.
That makes sense. But how do we go about building our vocabulary effectively? Just memorizing words from a list doesn't seem to work very well.
You're right. Instead of rote memorization, try learning words in context. Read books, watch movies, and listen to English podcasts. When you encounter new words in a natural setting, it's easier to understand their meaning and how they're used.
That's a great tip. And I guess we should also try to use these new words in our own conversations, right?
Exactly. Practice makes perfect. The more you use new words, the more comfortable you'll become with them. You could even start a vocabulary journal where you write down new words, their definitions, and example sentences.
Okay, vocabulary is covered. What about grammar? I feel like grammar is really important for speaking correctly.
It is important, but don't let it hold you back. You don't need to be a grammar expert to speak English well. Focus on the most common grammar structures and try to use them correctly in your conversations.
But how do we know which grammar structures are the most important?
Well, start with the basics, like verb tenses, sentence structure, and articles. You can find plenty of grammar resources online, such as grammar websites and YouTube channels. They usually have explanations and exercises to help you practice.
Got it. Another thing I struggle with is pronunciation. I find it difficult to make some of the sounds in English.
Pronunciation can be tricky, but with practice, you can improve. Listen carefully to native speakers and try to imitate their pronunciation. Pay attention to the rhythm, intonation, and stress patterns of English.
Do you have any specific exercises for pronunciation?
Sure. You can try shadowing, which is when you listen to an English audio or video and repeat what you hear immediately after. This helps you get used to the sounds and rhythms of the language. You can also record yourself speaking and compare it to a native speaker to identify areas for improvement.
That sounds like it could be really helpful. Now, what about finding opportunities to speak English? I don't have many English speaking friends.
There are lots of ways to find speaking opportunities. You can join English conversation groups, either in person or online. There are also language exchange platforms where you can meet other English learners and practice speaking with them.
That's a good idea. What about using language learning apps? Do they help with speaking?
Some apps do. For example, there are apps that have voice, recording features where you can practice speaking and get feedback. You can also use apps to find language partners or join virtual language classes.
I've heard that traveling to an English-speaking country is a great way to improve your spoken English. Is that true?
It can be extremely beneficial. Immersing yourself in an English-speaking environment forces you to use the language all the time. You get to interact with native speakers, learn about the culture, and pick up on the local slang and expressions.
But not everyone has the opportunity to travel. What else can we do?
Well, you can create an English-speaking environment at home. Watch English language TV shows and movies with subtitles in your native language at first, and then switch to English subtitles or no subtitles at all. Listen to English music and try to sing along. Even changing the language settings on your phone and computer to English can help.
That's a creative way to expose ourselves to the language. What about confidence? I often feel nervous when I try to speak English.
Confidence is key. Remember, everyone makes mistakes when they're learning a new language. Don't be afraid to speak up and make mistakes. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become. You can also start by having conversations with people who are at a similar level to you, so you don't feel as intimidated.
That's good advice. I also think it's important to have fun while learning. Otherwise, it can feel like a chore.
Absolutely. Find topics that you're interested in and talk about them in English. If you like sports, read and talk about sports in English. If you're into cooking, find English recipes and discuss them with others. Making learning enjoyable will keep you motivated.
I agree. Now let's talk about some common mistakes that English learners make when speaking. What do you think are the most frequent ones?
One common mistake is translating directly from their native language. English has its own unique grammar, vocabulary, and sentence structures, so trying to translate word for word often leads to incorrect or unnatural sounding sentences.
That makes sense. Another mistake I see a lot is using the wrong verb tenses.
Yes, verb tenses can be confusing, but with practice and exposure to the language, you'll start to get a better feel for when to use each tense. Also, some learners tend to overuse certain words or phrases, like very or so. Try to vary your vocabulary to make your speech more interesting.
Right. And what about hesitation? I often pause a lot when I'm speaking, which makes me sound less confident.
Hesitation is normal, especially when you're thinking about what to say next. But you can reduce it by practicing speaking regularly. You can also use filler words like or well to buy yourself some time. But don't use them.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. Let's summarize what we've talked about.
Sure. First, build your vocabulary by learning words in context and using them in conversations. Second, focus on the most important grammar structures. Third, work on your pronunciation through imitation and practice. Fourth, find opportunities to speak English, whether it's through conversation groups, language exchange platforms, or creating an English speaking environment at home. Fifth, boost your confidence by not being afraid to make mistakes. Sixth, have fun with the language by talking about topics you're interested in. And finally, be aware of common mistakes and try to avoid them.
Great summary. I think this conversation has given our listeners a lot of practical tips to improve their spoken English.
I hope so too. Remember, improving your spoken English takes time and effort, but with the right strategies and a positive attitude, you can make significant progress.
Absolutely. Let's encourage our listeners to start implementing these tips today and keep practicing.
Sounds good. That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening.